Neuropathy, or nerve damage, is one of the most common complications from diabetes. In fact, 1 out of every 2 people with diabetes will suffer from some form of neuropathy. To better understand neuropathy, we are joined by Dr. Aaron Vennick, professor of medicine at the Eastern Virginia Medical School and director of the Strelitz Diabetes Research Institute. Welcome, Dr. Vennick.
It's a pleasure to be here, Nicole.
Can you tell us what is neuropathy?
The word itself means neuro refers to a nerve, and opathy or pathology is damage to the nerves. Now, in the human body, you have nerves that fulfill voluntary functions. We call them somatic nerves, like moving an arm, feeling sensation, feeling hot, cold, temperature, and so forth. Those are somatic nerves. You also have autonomic nerves, involuntary nerves. These fulfill the involuntary functions of the body. For example, how your pupil constricts when you're exposed to light, how your bowel functions, and how your bladder functions, and so forth. So damage can occur to any one of these nerves. The somatic nerves, so that you lose power, strength, and the ability to perceive hot or cold or pain, or autonomic functions in which many of the autonomic systems in the body, like the heart, the lung, the bowel, stop functioning normally. That's neuropathy.
So what are some of the symptoms that a person with diabetes might experience if they have the beginning stages of neuropathy?
If you have somatic neuropathies, it's often pain, numbness, tingling, lightning pains, shock-like pains. But in addition to that, you may have negative symptoms, the sort of things that people don't perceive, changes in the texture of carpets that they're walking on. For example, you walk from the bathroom, which is a tiled floor, into a carpeted bedroom floor, and you cannot tell the difference. You put your foot in a bath, and you can't tell that the water is hot. You don't have to know that you have diabetic neuropathy to suffer its consequences, and that is why often we detect it in people by examining them, even if they're not aware of the symptoms. The autonomic symptoms could be more devastating. Anorexia, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, explosive bouts of diarrhea, constipation, inability to control your bladder, severe constipation that goes with sexual dysfunction in the male, such as erectile dysfunction, a dry vagina, and painful intercourse in the female.
So why is it that diabetes causes neuropathy?
There are multiple ways into what affects a nerve. A nerve is a living tissue. It needs a fuel supply. It also needs a very adequate blood supply, and it also needs to be protected from too high a sugar, too high a fat level, and needs to be protected from what is called immune destruction. By immune destruction, the same process that destroys the pancreas of a person with type 1 diabetes, the beta cells of the pancreas that make insulin, you can get a destruction of nerves in your body. And then lastly, we have in our body what it's called trophic factors or growth factors. Nerves need to grow. And they're also, once they've grown and they're mature, they need growth factors to keep them mature. So it's one of 4 different pathways. So if you get too high a sugar, that will damage your nerves. If you get too low a blood flow to the nerves, it's called the microvascular hypothesis. If you have antibodies to nerves, you'll destroy them, or if you're deficient in growth factors. I know that's not such a simple answer, but it's not a simple answer.
How important is early diagnosis and treatment of neuropathy?
I think early diagnosis and treatment of neuropathy is absolutely critical. One of the reasons is there's a long phase of evolution of neuropathy. You don't sort of wake up one day and you've got neuropathy. But you go through an incubation period, and during that incubation period, there's lots of inflammation going on in your nerve fibers. There's the high sugar levels with accumulation of sugar alcohols called sorbitol in the nerves. And then there's immune-mediated processes that I was talking about, which is antibody damage to nerves. During all that period, your nerves remain intact, but they don't function normally. If you can get them at that stage, before they've died off, we have every chance of restoring your function to normal, and restoring not only the function to normal, but restoring nerves. Neuropathy is probably the only truly reversible complication of diabetes.
Really?
If you recognize it early enough.
So what do you do to reverse it?
You do everything you can to address every single factor that's contributing to the nerve damage. For example, keeping your blood glucose normal is critically important. So most recently, in a study we've just completed and we will be presenting at the national meeting, in June, we've shown that if you use statin drugs, certain statin drugs, you improve the symptoms and you can actually improve nerve function and objective measures of nerve fibers. Oh. In diabetes, there are many different forms of neuropathy. You know, there are the proximal neuropathies, which means like your thighs and your shoulders are affected, that become weak and have pain. And then the distal ones, the ones down in your feet, and the autonomic neuropathies and different nerve fibers. These different neuropathies have different causes. So if it's immune-mediated, I can use immune therapy and get you better very quickly. I may be able to get you better within just a few weeks if I recognize what the cause is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vinnick.